Okay, it is I. I am here. Give me a sec. Yosha. Okay. Hello. Where's the music? Oh my god. Give me a sec here. Let me try to find my música. I guess my music's not here, so we're just gonna talk without music. My logo isn't there either. What? Oh wait, here it is. TamaTalks playlist. Ah, there we go. There we go. Okay, hello. My name is Tamashii, and all I gotta say is Tama Days. I'm a grumpy Latina VTuber who lives in Japan. I try to stream 5 times a week. On one of those days, I do political commentary called TamaTalks, where I speak on social issues that matter to me and that I think should matter to everyone. And today, I kind of want to continue where I left off last time in the Epstein files stream. But I might just go through it really quickly. Simply because of the situation with Cuba. There's a lot of things that I've been learning throughout all of this. Like, once again, I'm not an expert in anything. I just do my best to learn what I can and not let Western imperialism influence my beliefs like it has been since I've had an education in the US. So there's a lot of preconceived notions that you and me have about many countries that we probably don't even think about until we started paying more attention to the atrocities that the US participates in, especially when it comes to Palestine. I've been very vocal on Palestine, and I've been trying to also educate myself on other things. Of course, it's been difficult, but it's better than doing nothing, definitely. And I want to just like talk about Cuba because I feel like it's not that I know that it's very important right now, and a lot of people aren't really paying attention to it. And so I want to at least dedicate most of the stream to that. But I will continue the Epstein files on where I left off. Last week I left off on... Let me just show you. That's right, we left on the cannibalism part. I read you a file provided by the FBI, which was an interview they did with a male that had supposedly witnessed Epstein and his crew eat the intestines of a baby. Yeah. And they kind of just like said, hey, there's not enough evidence to think that this is true or not. But they didn't really follow up in the document if they even investigated it. All they did is that they looked at his body for scars. He didn't have scars. They thought he was mentally ill. But they didn't say they went to go look for his uncle who had supposedly trafficked him to Epstein and his other henchmen. So part of me, I'm like, and I think that's why many people, once reading that, started theorizing all about cannibalism. A lot of things were discovered. We looked at some lost media that spoke on that. That was kind of spooky, specifically of a Mexican model that went to this party, and she witnessed, either she went to this party or she was trafficked and trapped for a while, escaped, and just started telling everyone that the the corporates, everyone, the higher ups, everyone in power were eating people. She didn't realize they were eating people. She knew they were corrupt, but she didn't know that it went that far. The police took her, and then she disappeared forever, and you can't find any information on her. That is a video from a long ass time ago, and there's a lot of situations like those in Mexico that even I remember as a child hearing on the news. And among other things, of people claiming that these high elites are eating people, they're trafficking people, and all that stuff. So we also looked at that before looking at the FBI investigation, where they said, this guy's lying. So going back to, that's where we left off. I'm just doing a quick recap here. Now I kind of wanted to talk about this specific interview that I found in the Epstein files. I don't think anyone has been talking about it. Probably because it's like 30 pages long, and I ended up reading all of it. And like, it's only titled Jeffrey Epstein interview. That's it. But upon reading it, bars, I just rhymed. Upon reading it, I realized that Jeffrey Epstein was the interviewer. He was interviewing the scientist called Richard. I ended up doing some like searching, and I think this like genetics researcher, I think his full name was Richard Alex. I'm just guessing this is this person because it's just this Richard, like they don't give anything else. And so I went on Google and I looked up a Richard, like genetics scientist or bioscientist, and Alex Richard, I think his name was Alex. Excuse me if I'm wrong. But that guy popped out, and yes, he had connections with Epstein. The thing is like, when I read this document, Jeffrey Epstein was asking Richard a bunch of questions about how cells are formed in the body, how they duplicate, and all that stuff. In biology, of course. They were doing hypotheses, they were theorizing things and all that good stuff, correct? And so it goes on and on and on, and I forgot to bring my notes here. But it got to the point where they went on talking about DNA, duplicating DNA, then let me see. This was a long thing. Let me go get my iPad because I took like notes on there and screenshots. Wherever the fuck it is. Where did there it is. I have the big ass iPad too, so I don't even know how I always end up misplacing it. But yeah, they start talking about, biology. They start talking about how cells duplicate. And then they start talking about DNA. And I'm just like, huh? Then on page 7, apparently. Okay, this is page 7, right? It looks like they're talking about someone there. Either someone there, or I don't know if they're looking at a picture or something. But what freaked me the fuck out is that they were talking about evolving stuff, right? Let me see. Talking about survival, retinal scan, blah blah. Cephalopelvic deproportion is when pizza brain development into good Katie Corey isn't here. Correct. I had images that the clones on channel whatever. She didn't like that very much. Right, Katie Corey was here and we were talking about, I want to start cloning things. Me. Like, he's talking about wanting to clone himself, first of all. And he was talking to his friends about cloning himself. And he goes, and with certain people, Prince Andrew got upset because he was all, if it had a conscience, could you kill it for spare parts? And I said, I'll make it without a head. Would that make you feel better? And Katie Corey, I thought, was going to start to vomit. They may evolve with a head or arms or feet, so it couldn't get up and walk away. And did dishes. What? Did the dishes too, but you'd argue over a long period of time, a pressure like the limiting of the pelvic canal would make the brain more efficient, not necessarily a limiting factor. They just start talking about body parts and implying things about those body parts and how he wants to clone things specifically for body parts. Okay, so when I read that, I kind of like froze. Okay, I was like, what the fuck? Again, there's theories of cannibalism. He's interviewing a scientist about reproducing cells. And then he goes, I want to clone me. Prince Andrew didn't like it. And I said, well, I can clone someone without a head and just clone it for body parts. What? And then we go down here, lower here. Richard's phone rings. Sorry, I have a sick friend. And then Jessica, I don't know who the fuck is Jessica, but Jessica's probably like the intern. I don't know, like the note taker. I don't know. I don't know who Jessica works for, but Jessica's in here. She appears here randomly. I don't know if she's also a scientist, probably. And so she starts off asking, so if someone really wanted to start a new race of superiorly intelligent people, they would prefer to have only Caesareans, right? And then out of nowhere, I don't know if they're talking about Richard's friend who was sick on the phone or not. There's just not enough context for me. Maybe that's it. But Jeffrey just goes, is he still alive? And then Richard goes, that's a problem. He would be much better off dead. Does he get a vote? As close as Joe. Oh, really? Yeah, really serious. One of those walking down the street and then boom, an aneurysm. In bed. How old? My age. So he's old already. Old. He's already lived a full life, gone beyond his reproductive stage. In fact, his prostate. Did he? That's not why. Let me digress for a second. Richard, as if you haven't been digressing. Yes, I've been regressing, says Jeffrey. That's not possible. Yes, that's true. I'd have to turn into a virus. So then this specific conversation goes, okay, and I'm paraphrasing here. You guys should read it yourselves. They start talking about the prostate and they come into this like hypothesis theory that a person finishes their lifespan once the body is unable to reproduce or, you know, create, like have their reproductive organs not work anymore. So it goes on to Jeffrey then theorizing with this guy that perhaps the link to longevity is if you can prolong your reproductive system. if you could continue to be reproductive, if your reproductive organs work, if you are that means you're healthy, and therefore, technically speaking, you will prolong your youth and your longevity. And I guess they're trying to dig into like living forever. I don't know, but this is like the vibes and what I was trying to get to. So it just, the conversation is literally, it went from, okay, how do cells reproduce? I want to clone myself, to steal that clone's body parts for my own. And think of this. Technically speaking, you are at the end of your life. Once your reproductive organs don't work anymore, we gotta find a way to prolong your reproductive organs, so your body will forever try to continue living, I suppose, for a longer time. And so, I mean, that's just, there's more to it that if I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I was gonna read it, but it's gonna just take a long time, so I'm just paraphrasing, of course. But the thing is like, Jeffrey would have these conversations with these type of conversations with a bunch of scientists and people in the medical industry, and not only medical industry, but with like higher ups, with people of power all the time. So I don't think it is far-fetched at all for the public to be freaking out about cannibalism, about, human trafficking, about human trafficking solely for the purpose of stealing people's organs. Here's another investigation from the FBI. This is evidence that was sent to the FBI, by the way. It's screenshots from Twitter.com. Okay? And I can't read girlies English is very difficult to read for me. But this was considered evidence from I don't know who to I don't know who. Subject, hello again. Importance, normal. This article popped up just after my friend in Canada was telling me the story of her at 4 with R.T. Rudolph Rudy Tanzi, Harvard scientist for Epstein. I've also uploaded the following screenshots to the cloud drive I shared with you under folder Canada. I'm gonna sneeze. I apologize. So, right here, some girl 07 says, of course, they need to do a deeper investigation into this. And if it is true that they were harvesting adrenochrome in organs, there, and it was set up like the underground temple, something, etc. were there. Is that Epstein's name? Did they... I don't know who they censored there. Etc. were in there. They would have seen and partook in the harvesting of that stuff. She hasn't commented about the underground temple on the island. She hasn't told the full truth of everything. She has covered up stuff, including knowledge of them actually harvesting adrenochrome and organs. This was sent to the FBI as evidence. And they don't even say it. I mean, I don't know. Oh yeah. And then I don't know if these are her photos. She had an experience where she almost got kidnapped and sent to these places, I suppose. I'm not gonna read all of it. You guys should read it for yourselves. But here, I'll read this part. I saw him hitting her, telling her to call me back, and when I got to that corner where they could no longer see me, I ran like hell home. I was then told that stuff in his pants was blood. Okay, and it was from sitting on buckets of lids that were used to collect the blood, and it would ooze out around the lid and it would get on the back of the pants like that way. And then they show this like blurry picture. It looks like security footage, screenshots of that. They are sitting on black buckets here. I was told Jeffrey ordered them directly from China because white buckets stained. And then this person says, I believe it all. And so they sent all of these screenshots to the FBI. I'm assuming, because look at this, they censored whoever they sent this to. I'm just assuming they sent this to the FBI. I mean, I don't know who else they would send this to. If they sent this to Epstein, then oh god, that's even worse. I'm hoping they sent this to the FBI so they could investigate it. But to be honest, like, it's not like they're doing anything to help anyone who's been affected by this. So as you can see, the organ harvesting is like, it makes sense. We just read a transcript of an interview done by Epstein himself with a scientist, a genetics guy, about possibly cloning and harvesting that clone's organs. Of course, I hope we haven't gone that far in science where you can clone a perfect replica of yourself. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched that they are human trafficking children, and all these models and stuff, to harvest their organs. Like, someone sent evidence of a possible witness of that. Now we get to this specific story here. This is a diary of a victim held at the ranch. It was written by a girl who was used as an incubator, chat. An incubator, forced to give birth to babies who were then immediately taken from her, likely to be sold or worse. Not for the faint of heart. And so we click on this. Confidential's eyes only. So I want you guys to like experience. This is a transcript of a victim from Epstein's island and /farm/ranch. Okay, the fact that it's called a ranch implies that they were harvesting these girls for something. Okay, and so it says here, close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. Don't speak, she doesn't talk. I can't stop shaking and it's been a week. A decision was made, but I can't tell Jeffrey. These things happen. Why didn't I close my eyes fast enough? The doctor was different again. I think from Israel. He had kind eyes but didn't speak directly to me. This was different. A shot and those rod-like things had a hook and so much pain. What's her name? How do you pronounce her name again? Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I don't understand. Blood and water all over the bed, and she was right. Like a feeling when your tummy hurts and you have to push. She said to close my eyes and put her hands over my eyes, but I didn't close them because of these tiny cries. I am so lost. I saw between her fingers this tiny head and body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more. Next page. So this is the actual transcript of that. What we just read right here was this. The girl who was writing about one of the births she was forced to have on Epstein's island's quote-unquote ranch was documented like this. Okay, her experience was documented like this in code. She made it like this, so I'm assuming so people wouldn't be able to read what the fuck she was saying. Her diary. This was her diary, but to make it private, she wrote it like this. Now here's the thing. I was like, when you look at this hard enough, you can kind of understand what's being said here. One thing that I noticed about Jeffrey Epstein, and I don't know if it's because he's like actually fucking stupid, but I feel like he also has like very severe dyslexia, because he just cannot spell for shit. And so I assumed that maybe the child, the girl who was forced to possibly have his children and be a human incubator, was realized that Jeffrey can't fucking read, and so she made it harder for him to read by writing her experiences in this diary like this. And so if we go down here, let me see. If we go down here, this victim actually also used magazine cutouts as well, and a short life tragedy. My heart is breaking. So look at this top part right here. You can't read it at first glance, but just try to read it. Here, let me show you. So right here says I. You start from the K, then go up, then down, up and down, up and down, and then you'll be able to understand the message. So I know I am ... That's what that says right here. There's a poem here. And then she writes all of this. Again, it's a specific pattern. You go down, diagonally up, then down, diagonally up, down, diagonally up, to be able to decipher the message that this person wrote in her diary. So it says, it says in the not see, I also have dyslexia, so this is hard. In the hall, I think that's his Ghislaine Maxwell's name, but Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was. Wow. This is so hard for me to read. Oh, in the hall! Okay, look. In the hall, Ghislaine said she was beautiful? Yeah, right here. In the hall, Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. She was! Oh my god. Okay. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard her tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. He was right. A couple of months and 2 pink lines with a hold on being with others until after it was positive. I want to die. Why didn't she protect me? As long as I am wearing what you want, there's no respect for me as a human. I am nothing but your property and incubator. You only trust me when I am under your complete control. I will never trust another man ever. I am the only one who provides and sacrifices everything. I give and give out of terror, and you take all from me. You need me to continue keeping us all connected. And so, evidence of them harvesting, like if they can't do cloning, guys, then them harvesting a human incubator to make what they perceive as like a perfect human baby specimen, possibly then trafficking that baby, selling that baby, or God forbid harvesting its organs and blood for something else. This is evidence from the FBI of a victim from Epstein Island. Okay? All of this. So, she documented herself having her babies stolen from her, and is begging for help in this diary. It says, "Please release me from this torture and hell." So these theories of cannibalism, obviously human trafficking happened, but to the point of harvesting organs, of cannibalism, and now making human incubators. Jesus Christ. All for organs? Is that even possible, chat? Well, what if I told you it fucking is? It is fucking possible. Does this not sound familiar? I've read a story. I'm pretty sure I've read the story before. I don't know if we ended up watching this particular clip, but I want to remind everyone of the reality of what Israel does to the Palestinian people. Okay? Harvesting organs is something that Israel does all the time when they kill Palestinians. And I am going to show you evidence of that and remind you of that, because when I first heard of that, I was horrified. I really fucking was. And that was something that was already known to me. But then seeing that the Epstein files basically confirmed that, especially since Jeffrey Epstein was from Israel himself. Come on. It just confirms it. For me, that's like a 100% confirmation. That's literally just Israeli culture, unfortunately. Give me a sec, though. Let's look at this. Well, actually, don't look at that. Look over here. Give me a sec. I need to make sure you guys can hear the audio of this specific window capture source. Beep boop ba boop ba 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 beep boop ba. Let me turn it off. So I'm gonna exit these for a bit. So this is a clip from an Israeli Channel 2 news investigation, and it reveals that Israel steals organs and skin from Palestinians. It's just a short clip from that specific investigation. And so I will try to read the Nandake, what's this called? The subtitles for those who cannot read right now, and obviously who don't understand the language. But yeah, let's see if you guys can hear this. However, let me look at the window capture. Okay, cool, it is working. So 170 square meter is what the first thing is being said here. Give me a sec. This is considered the hugest human skin bank in the world. Yes, this is considered the hugest skin bank in the world. What is the percentage of the Israeli donors? And then the chick starts laughing. And he goes, why are you laughing? Because you're asking a weird question. I can't tell you because the percentage is very low. So the question is not weird. The answer is weird. The answer is weird. No, the answer is not weird because it is known that Israelis do not donate. It was known that part of the institution task was that the latter was giving human skin to the skin bank of Israel, which is actually the Israeli army skin bank. But they never took from soldiers. We never touch or take from the skin or the body of the Israeli soldiers, but we took from quote unquote others. Others. Are you guys seeing the fucking connection here? Others. They took from others. The Israeli military soldiers are the ones that are donating the organs and the skin to the skin banks. They are the organ donors. Internal organs, skin, anything. But they're not donating such body parts, such organs from themselves. They're donating organs that they find from possibly people that they kill. Are you guys connecting the dots here? Basically, they steal body parts and organs from Palestinians that they kill and murder and donate it to the skin banks and the organ banks in Israel for the benefit of the Israeli population. From who? Now the question is from who? Imagine from who. There was a time we took from Palestinians and also from refugees and foreigners. Skin and cells were taken from the bodies that passed autopsy and it wasn't relevant. If we are talking about bodies of citizens of Israel or foreign workers or Palestinians, for the majority of the Israeli soldiers' bodies, we never took anything because they never passed autopsy. And that's just a very short clip of that. But, you know, some people will say, okay, Tama, that is taken out of context. It's super blurry. I can barely hear it and it looks super sketchy. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go with that. Pretty sure someone might say that. So, let's just go to fucking official news. This is from Drop Site, okay? October 17th, 2025. This is literally from last year. And I mean, like I said before, when I found out about this, I started freaking out. I couldn't believe it. And I'm pretty sure I talked about it. It's like, they're stealing the organs of Palestinians? What? And this is just a short clip from Drop Site News reporting on that specific fact. And it says, Israel harvested organs of captured Palestinians, doctor says. And the caption says, we formally accuse the Israeli army of stealing organs from the martyrs. So let's hear this. Let me zoom in for you guys.
Accused the Israeli army of stealing organs from the martyrs, said Dr. Ismail al-Thawabta, who was the Director General of the Government Media Office in Gaza. He said Israel returned 120 mutilated bodies. Some had missing coronas, livers, and limbs. He added that throughout the war, they have repeatedly received bodies that Israel dumped in metal containers near hospitals. When their teams examined them, they found half-naked bodies without heads or limbs and bodies without eyes or internal organs. That's why they're formally accusing the Israeli army of stealing organs. I quote, "This was obvious to every inspection team over the past 3 days." Dr. Thawabta said, Israel is also withholding the names of the mutilated bodies, which violates the Geneva Conventions and makes it extremely difficult to identify the victims. Thousands of families have rushed to hospitals trying to see if their relatives are among the mutilated bodies. And this is why he's demanding an international probe into torture, mutilation, and organ theft by the Israeli army.
So yeah, they're just basically stealing organs, especially during the... I mean, they've always been doing this, even before the prison swap, the last prison swap. You know, Israel hasn't really complied. I mean, every time they release someone, they end up kidnapping more people illegally and without due trial, you know, obviously in very shady ways, but I mean, I suppose we all know that. But they didn't really release all of the prisoners. Why? Because they would return some of the prisoners in literally just boxes of flesh in body bags with just limbs, with no identification, no way of knowing who's who. Why were they coming back in limbs, and why did, you know, they preserve that as well? It's because they were stealing their internal organs, chat. I mean, they're still doing it to this day. I don't think Israel has finished doing their part of the prison swap, honestly. They just have detained so many people unfairly in their evil prisons that some of the people that are being released from said prisons aren't even being released with like their full body intact. So once again, like going back to the Jeffrey Epstein files, we just looked at Jeffrey Epstein doing an interview with a shady scientist guy, right? We just looked at that. They start talking about genetics. They start talking about cells. And then Jeffrey straight up says, I want to clone myself. And jokingly says, I want to clone myself and preserve the clone's organs so I can be younger. I don't know. We saw a bunch of victims' testimonies and evidence from the FBI. I don't know if it's like confirmed or not, but it's in the Epstein files where fucking hell, they are claiming that people are eating children, that I mean, we confirm know that someone was used as an incubator, and then someone else says that Israel was preserving organs in buckets. And now we look at today where Palestinians have been urging the world to help them, especially when it comes to the prison swap and Israel returning prisoners to Palestine, and limbs without their organs, without their eyes, without their skin, sometimes just flesh. And it's because they literally do steal organs from Palestinians. So all of these like crazy claims in the Epstein files do hold some truth. They really do. So this is a bit too long. Let's see. I've already been talking about the Epstein files for an hour, so I'm just gonna skip the Democracy Now! Interview. I just connected the dots between the whole what's it called? Between harvesting and stealing organs from people, right? And I specifically said that that's an Israel thing. But some people might question, okay, but was he really, just because he's from Israel, Tama, you shouldn't be saying that stuff. Okay, you can't know if he was working for the Israel government and stuff. Well, fucking hell, Here is an interview, pretty sure recorded by Epstein himself, again, of him talking to the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Okay? This is the former Prime Minister.
Accept, open in a sophisticated, subtle manner, open the gates for massive conversion into Judaism.
Okay, so here, and fudge, I don't think you guys can see this, huh? Let me, here. So, what is being spoken about here in this specific audio clip provided from the U.S. Department of Justice, by the way, of the former Israeli Prime Minister talking to Jeffrey Epstein, is that he wanted Israel to be more open to conversion into Judaism, because I guess they didn't like the fact that Muslims were there and that other specific races were becoming, like, converting, or there just wasn't enough Israelis, basically. And so they wanted more people to convert to Judaism, okay? So the former Israeli Prime Minister is explaining to Jeffrey Epstein that, hey, we literally tried talking to Putin about helping us bring 1 million Russians to Israel so they can convert to Judaism and just live here with us and be a part of my tongue keeps popping out. Sorry, my phone isn't working because it's too far away. But yeah, they wanted more people to become citizens of Israel. So this is what he's talking about here.
It's a successful country. Many will apply at the beginning without cannot make it a precondition, but under the social pressure, the need, especially of the second generation, to adapt, it will happen. And we can control the quality.
We can control the quality much more effectively than our ancestors.
Our ancestors, or kind of founding,
or the kind of founding fathers of Israel
could did with the wave, that it was a kind of salvation wave from North Africa, from the Arab, or from whatever.
That is the salvation from North Africa and from Arabs. Oh my God. He's okay.
They took whatever came just to save people. Now we can be selective.
They took whatever. To help the people, but now we can actually choose who can be Israel. Do you see how Israel is called "it's not real" by many people? Can you see why people say that it's literally a baby country? Like it's not real. It's just fake. And people are pretending like it's been there for millions and thousands of years because the Bible says so. No, it was just made. They threw a bunch of people from a different country in the land of the Palestinians, and they colonized it, and then they called it Israel. Like anyone can be, like basically you don't have to be Jewish to become Jewish. Like he wants to select people who can become Jewish, and specifically a bunch of Russians. I think, did you know that the third most spoken language in Israel is actually Russian? I'm pretty sure. And it's because of this planning of them just like, hey, we need more citizens of Israel. You know what's a good race to choose from? Let's ask Russia to join us. Jesus Christ.
And I think that with much more open kind of mind about turning Judaism.
Let's open our minds about turning into a Jew.
We can easily absorb another million.
We can easily absorb another million. So they literally just want more citizens to gain power and to get, obviously, to be recognized as a legitimate country.
I used to tell Putin always, what we need is not just
what we need is just 1 more million.
1 more million. It changed Israel in a dramatic manner. The million Russians, and I think that many will prefer to be Belarusian, or many young handsome girls will come.
Many young handsome girls will come.
I believe we
Tall, thin. So this is him just like, yeah, talking about that. Now look at this. Okay. Again, by the way, this recorded conversation is 3 fucking hours long. 3 hours long! 3! Of Jeffrey Epstein talking with the former prime minister, the guy before Netanyahu, okay? So Epstein tells ex-Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak to speak with Palantir. I want you guys to remember that. Palantir founder Peter Thiel in this released audio. You guys want, I didn't understand it at first, obviously, when I heard this. I was like, I don't understand what necessarily they're talking about. Why is Jeffrey Epstein telling the prime minister to contact this specific guy? But one thing that did, that I felt my nuggets tingling is the word Palantir and Peter Thiel. I'm like, I heard those 2 words before. Palantir sounds very, very similar to my ears. I feel like I've heard it before. And I'll tell you why, but let's hear this audio first.
Everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange. Like he's on
That's
drugs.
Epstein.
smoking, yeah. He looks under drugs.
So Jeffrey Epstein is kind of like talking shit about the founder of Palantir. Is like, oh yeah, you know that guy that looks like he's on drugs? He's like, yeah, he looks like he's on drugs.
He has a company called Palantir.
He has a company called Palantir.
Pallen. Tier. Palantir is Peter Thiel's company.
Also, again, Jeffrey Epstein can't spell for shit. He literally sucks at spelling. They both suck at spelling really bad. Like he spells it really wrong.
Look at
Palantir, Palantir.
Yes.
How you write Thiel? Thiell.
Thiel.
Yeah. LLY.
No. Thiell.
Okay.
So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of Palantir. Peter Thiel is one of the best. I've never met him. He's going to come here next week. So I wanted to talk to him after I talked to you.
Okay.
He and Andreessen, it's called Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz, that's what they pay Larry $1 million a year. Just to advise them.
Andreas and?
Andreessen, Andreessen, and Horowitz.
This is completely
Horowitz.
different spelling. Jesus Christ.
Horowitz.
No.
Horowitz.
Okay.
Horowitz.
Yes.
What they are? It's a lobbyist. What they are?
They are the biggest venture capital people in Silicon Valley.
What, bigger than Sequoia or Kleiner
These
Perkins?
are the new Kleiner Perkins. Everybody, these are the smart boys.
Okay. So yeah, again, he's telling them, you need to talk and associate with this Peter Thiel guy who owns Palantir. Okay, he's just telling him. Why? Because again, Jeffrey Epstein is from Israel. Okay, he's Jewish. And not saying that everyone who's Jewish is a Zionist, but Jeffrey was a proud Zionist. He's from Israel, and he wanted Israel to prosper. So naturally, he was speaking to the Prime Minister Ehud Barak on who to contact to help help Israel prosper.
Yeah.
So those two companies right away, in terms of, I said that we need now, in the next 3 weeks, if you're going to leave, he thought there was two cyber companies.
Two cyber companies.
And even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel. And everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks there under drugs.
So that was the whole thing, right? But I'm telling you, I've heard of this before. And I'm pretty sure eventually you guys probably heard about it before. And here's the thing. Bam! Right here. Palantir develops new immigration surveillance tool for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Okay, since October 7th, here, let me go specifically to this. Since October 7th, Palantir Technology has been supplying the Israeli occupation with new AI tools. We have begun supplying different products that we supplied before the start of the war. Alex Karp, Palantir CEO. And this is from Bloomberg. Following its support for the Israeli occupation with AI tools since the start of the genocide, Palantir is now partnering with ICE through a $30 million contract to develop a digital platform aimed at automating and streamlining deportations. Okay. ICE has also been targeting pro-Palestine activists and supporters, such as Mahmoud Kali and Rumeisa Ozturk, through the arrests and the revocation of visas and green cards. Immigration OS focuses on 3 core functions. So this is how the surveillance technology works. Number 1, targeting and enforcement prioritization identifies high-priority deportation targets, self-deportation tracking, monitors voluntary departures, and 3, immigration lifecycle process, assists in identifying, managing, and removing individuals. So, unwavering support for the Israeli occupation, Palantir develops new immigration surveillance tool for for ICE, basically. And that's Palantir. So, once again, Israel, and I've mentioned this before in TamaTalks, Israel has very good surveillance technology. In fact, if you were to get a VPN, most famous VPNs that you see advertised in Google, not Google, but YouTube advertisements, sponsors basically, when a YouTube sponsors like NordVPN or something like that, most of those VPN services, tracking services, private services, are owned by Israel companies. And Palantir is one of those companies that is a tracking cyber tech thingy, not thingy, but company used to, abuse Palestinians, track them, kidnap them, and of course now they're partnering with ICE because they use it on the Palestinians. It's been very successful. Now they're, of course, let ICE, let's help ICE here, our brothers here. Fucking hell. Did you know that ICE has been trained by the IDF, by Israeli soldiers as well, on how to abuse innocent protesters, innocent citizens, innocent quote-unquote immigrants, quote-unquote undocumented immigrants, by the way. Those are Palestinians. There's a reason why I speak on this shit, because I can somewhat understand to a certain extent. I don't think at this point, I don't think anyone can understand the pain that Palestinians are going through right now. But I can understand a little bit. My heart hurts. And I related to them because of my experiences with how my country treats me, the country I was born in, especially when it comes to ICE. Turns out that Israel is helping ICE. That's no surprise to me. But we just heard Jeffrey Epstein talking to the Prime Minister of Israel that they should partner up with these people to give Israel success. And now fast forward through time, Palestine is suffering from genocide among other countries, and ICE is just getting more violent. They're not just killing Mexicans, brown people, or black people anymore. They're fucking killing anyone. This is why you gotta speak out on these issues and learn about what's going on. It's all connected. Epstein, ICE, connected. Epstein, ICE, Palestine genocide, connected. More things are connected. Everything is connected. That's why I respect Greta Thunberg so much. By the way, she's going to go to Cuba, by the way, to give people humanitarian aid over there, which is going to lead on to my next point. I'm finally going to talk about Cuba. But to finish the Epstein files topic here, do you mean that everything that happens is somehow connected behind the scenes? More like not everything that happens, but when it comes to corruption, when it comes to specifically Western imperialism, that is connected. Even behind the scenes. But usually, if you think about it, a lot of this stuff hasn't really been behind the scenes. It's been pretty on the out in the open. Sorry, wait, give me a sec. I think my neighbor is slamming the wall again. Because like I could just say something general, right? I could just be like, everything's connected. No. Let's be more specific here. Western imperialism, whether it's the US, whether it's England, whether it's what else? What else is a superpower? Canada. Who else is working together? Who else is doing nothing specifically? Who has power that is not helping Palestine right now? That is not helping Cuba right now? That is okay with fucking most of the Muslim countries to be like bombed to hell right now? It's all connected. And then a lot of people are talking about cannibalism and stuff, and I basically proved that an hour ago. I proved that an hour ago. Was pretty freaky. Especially when it came to the human incubator file that I read a bit. And it got to the point where we got to see Jeffrey Epstein talking to the Prime Minister of Israel and telling them, hey, Palantir, get in contact with them. And then Palantir, again, creates cyber stalking sources, possibly drones, tracking sources to track Palestinians, bomb them, kill them, kidnap them. And now they're working with ICE. Come on, it's insane. Epstein is connected to ICE. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because there's this other VTuber, I forgot her name, something about sliced bread. They're a nobody, obviously, but it just really bothers me that they use, basically they're speaking out, which is a good thing. They're being woke on Twitter, okay? But I kind of noticed that they're just doing it for likes. And if someone doesn't sound like them, or doesn't like what they say, or question anything that they say, they just block and try to start these harassing campaigns against you. And a person that I know on there basically was talking about the Epstein files and said, hey, I need to take a step back. This person goes into their replies and starts harassing them, saying, well, why are you fucking focusing on the Epstein files when people are being killed by ICE on the streets right now? You are privileged. And I'm like, excuse me. This person blocked me, by the way, a Mexican American who has suffered from ICE. They blocked me. They're white also. And then I'm just like, this is how you know these people are superficial. Like, they're not doing any research. They're not connecting the dots. They're just reading a headline, or they're looking at what's popular on Twitter and they're saying the popular thing, getting a bunch of likes, but they don't actually care. They're not reading history. They're not looking at news sources. Epstein is connected to ICE, okay? Israel has trained our ICE agents in the US. Why do you think they're killing people? That's literally an IDF thing. Or American thing. I mean, I guess they're twins at this point. And so, let me conclude this specific topic. I wrote some notes here. Okay, here we go. Conclusion to the Epstein files. Here in TamaTalks, Tama's opinion says, there is a reason why Palestine, Sudan, Congo, and all other countries suffering from, my phone died. Great. And all other countries suffering from Western-backed colonialism are not facing justice and instead brutal death. It has all been well orchestrated by Zionism and white supremacy. If your country is suffering from human trafficking and Western-backed imperialism, demand these people to be sent to fucking jail. Do not become desensitized. Now, a lot of people are just like memeing about the Epstein files. I get it. I understand. I've memed about it as well. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But people aren't taking it seriously. People are just like, oh, cannibalism, yo, and then forgetting about it. No. Keep talking about it until everyone is sent to jail. Like, how come Trump can hang out with cannibalism, probably participated in it, and is still the fucking president? Like, not even the Democrats are doing their best to send that guy to jail, and I this is why I hate them. Give me a sec, I'm gonna charge my phone. Everyone is just like turning the cheek, and we're not actually asking our governments to do more. Because literally every country, almost every major country, their leaders have been associated with Epstein to a certain extent. Sorry, my phone is falling. Stop it! Now I'm just very tall. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Please don't fall again. And yeah, so that was the Epstein segment. Finally over. And so now I want to talk about, give me a sec. Let me look at my, hope you guys can't see anything. Hope I don't dox myself. Lamau. Let me look at my bookmarks here. I mean, right now what's on the news is the halftime show. That was pretty great. I think the Bad Bunny halftime show is the #1 most watched halftime show. I don't know from where, but I'm assuming on YouTube. I don't know where else, but a lot of people watched it. Actually, I just remembered I can't fucking watch it because I'm streaming on YouTube and I'll get copyright strike. Lamau. But yeah, I mean, I don't know who watched the Bad Bunny performance at the NFL yesterday. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. A lot of people loved it. Bad Bunny is someone from Puerto Rico. He sung only in Spanish, and spoke against the suffering of his people in Puerto Rico. One of those things that was referenced in his dances there was Puerto Rico not having energy, not having electricity. And towards the end of the halftime show, what's up, girly girl? What's up, Batuger? Batuger. First time chatter, thank you for joining. Please read the pin. I'm actually doing politics right now. And we're actually going to be talking about Cuba and reflecting on Cuba. So if you'd like to join, then hey, don't laugh at my name. Listen, I just thought it was silly. But yeah, just read the pin, follow the rules, and be respectful. My name is Tamashii. I live in Japan. I do 5 streams a week. On one of those days, I do political commentary called TamaTalks, which is right now. And right now, we're going to be talking about Cuba. Year 2. Tamashii. I think it sounds cool. But yeah, towards the end of Bad Bunny's, here, let me turn on the music, because there we go. Towards the end of Bad Bunny's performance, he started talking, like naming a bunch of Latin American countries. And that pissed off a lot of racists. It really did. But it did unify a bunch of like Latin American people who live in the US and even outside the US. It really unified us. It's been a while since someone from that is Latino, basically.
What the Sigma?
That's scaring me. Latino, basically united, made us Latinos feel seen in the US, right? But the thing about that is, like, what about Cuba? And that's why I want to talk about Cuba. What about Cuba, guys? Like, what's going on here? Right now, Cuba is at risk of losing their entire oil. So recently, the US has called for a total blockade of oil to Cuba. So let's look at that. And this is from Al Jazeera, a source from Al Jazeera. Give me a sec. I don't know why it's not popping out. No, not the half! Sorry, I almost got copyright strike. Okay, there we go. So yeah, Russia warns Cuba fuel situation is critical. Havana slams cruel US tactics. So Cuban foreign minister accuses US of trying to break the political will of Cubans. Hints at diplomacy within Washington. So let's just look at this quick video provided from Al Jazeera. I gotta turn off my music, however.
Cuba's
That hurt my ears. Christ. Let me turn off my music though. God damn ads. Here we go. So this is just like a quick rundown on what's going on in Cuba.
President Miguel Díaz-Canel has rarely given news conferences, but then these are no ordinary times. He recognizes that Cuba is under a U.S. fuel blockade and that rolling blackouts, shortages of food and fuel are taking a heavy toll on the people.
This is asphyxia. They're trying to asphyxiate us completely, and to prevent them from doing so, we have a strategy. We have a program that we have devised.
Díaz-Canel spoke at length of plans to reorganize and reform Cuba's already scarce fuel capacity by increasing alternative energy sources like solar plants, as well as its own heavy oil and gas industry. But in the wake of the U.S. attack on Venezuela last month, he said there's an even more urgent priority.
It is our sovereign duty in the face of danger of aggression to prepare for defense. One of the priorities we established is to deploy a defense readiness plan. This includes the preparation of the entire territorial defense system of our country at all its levels.
For more than 6 decades, Cubans have lived under U.S. economic and financial sanctions, and they've suffered acute economic crises, like the current one. But Díaz-Canel insists Cuba will resist any U.S. attempt to negotiate regime change.
Cuba is willing to engage in dialogue with the United States. Dialogue on any topic that one wishes to debate or discuss, but without pressures, preconditions, or coercion. A dialogue like that could build a civilized relationship between neighbors.
Hello, everybody.
The White House.
Oh my God, I hate her.
The president is always willing to engage in diplomacy, and I believe that's something that is taking place, in fact, with the Cuban government.
Actually, they haven't even negotiated anything at all. They haven't tried to negotiate anything at all that's been already announced as of like earlier today. I think at least like 5 hours ago. Apparently, Marco Rubio he's Cuban, isn't he? I think he's Cuban as well. Marco Rubio was like, I think he's in charge of the negotiations, but he hasn't even tried at all to get the Cuban government to speak with Trump to make these negotiations. So far, the only thing that Trump has been saying is that, yeah, they're going to impose very heavy tariffs to any country that dares to send fuel, not send fuel, but even sell fuel to Cuba.
Recognizing that Cubans are worried about how to survive, he assured them that Cuba is not alone, suggesting, without naming names, that there are countries willing to defy the U.S. oil blockade and come to his country's aid. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
So that is just like a little rundown on what's going on, right, in Cuba. But let's think harder here. There was they mentioned it in the video, but I just want to ask, what happened recently that possibly caused this specific issue when it comes to oil to skyrocket, in a sense where Cuba is now facing a crisis where they're literally running out of oil? Why has Cuba's oil depleted so drastically? We gotta ask ourselves that. Are you paying attention to the news? Basically, is what I'm asking. And here it is. This is from actually NHK World Japan. I'm surprised I was reading here. But Cuba is unable to refuel international flights due to U.S. pressure on oil. Of course. That is another thing. Like, literally, they can't even fly because there isn't oil for the fucking airplanes to fly away. So, Cuban aviation officials have warned international airlines servicing the country that it will not be able to supply jet fuels to airplanes from Tuesday. The Caribbean nation is under U.S. pressure in procuring oil. Now, here's the answer to my question in here. Let me make this smaller because you guys can't really see the fuck. Let me go to my other program here. I'll turn the music while you guys wait. Boop. Boop. Ah, I see. Does that does that look better? Shit. Let's do this then. Bottom. Ugh. Okay, I think that's better. So yeah, here's the answer. What happened recently that affected Cuba so drastically that their oil has depleted, like so much that they're about to run out of it completely. Well, this is what happened. Cuba used to rely on its ally Venezuela for oil. Okay? Trump bombed Venezuela, kidnapped the leader of Venezuela, forced Venezuela to sell oil to the United States, and therefore also have the United States dictate where the Venezuela oil goes to. Who gets to buy that Venezuela oil? First it gets sold to the US, then the US sells that Venezuelano oil to whoever country they want. And of course, the US has a long history with Cuba where they just hate Cuba. They do. Tama time. Hello, Cod. How are you? It's been a while. Yeah, the US has a huge history with hating Cuba, by the way. And now that they got control of Venezuela and stole their fucking oil, of course they're not letting Cuba get that oil. It has not received any recently, as the US administration of President Donald Trump is restricting supplies to the island. The US has also threatened to impose tariffs on any country supplying oil to Cuba, making it unable to source the fuel. As a result, Cuba could run out of oil as early as this month. Sources including the US Federal Aviation Administration said Cuba on Sunday notified airlines servicing the country's airports that jet fuel will no longer be available at them from Tuesday to March 11th. In response, Air Canada said on Monday that it is suspending flights to Cuba. It is said that over the following days, it will operate empty flights to the country to pick up and fly home about 3,000 customers already there. Other airlines are also forced to bring extra fuel or make refueling stops on the return journey if they continue to fly to and from Cuba. See, that's even dangerous. Like, imagine if a plane just ran out of fuel because the US is being an asshole and not giving them. Oil's the only thing the US likes more than touching kids. That's true. That's actually true. We just finished talking about the Epstein files, COD, actually. That was my first topic, and I'm like, okay, we finished the Epstein files, now let's talk about the oil. the true love of the American, of America, of the American people. Acute energy shortages have hit the Caribbean country. Parts of the capital, Havana, suffered a power outage for 18 hours on Sunday. The United Nations has repeatedly expressed concern. Oh, really? They express concern, but they do dog shit. They don't do anything. Fucking assholes. Useless pieces of shits. I hate anyone in the United Nations because they don't do anything. They're just, oh, we have concern. Imagine getting shot in the head and then someone from the UN goes, that is concerning. I have concern. But they don't take you to the fucking hospital. They don't even try to fucking look for the criminal that shot you in the head in the first place. Fucking hell, they're the ones that shot you in the head. Oh my god, that's so true. They shoot you in the head and then they look at you and they're like, oh my god, I'm expressing concern because you have a bullet on your head. And it was them. It was them, and they do dog shit. The UN has repeatedly expressed concern over the growing fuel shortages in Cuba and their impact on its people. And this is from NHK World Japan. Okay. So of course them stealing Venezuelan oil ended up fucking up Cuba even more. And like I said before, the US hates Cuba. And basically, this is another form of punishment for Cuba for daring to have a revolution and kick out American control of their country, kick out American control from America having control over Cuba. And so I know that, especially me as an American, and not even as an American, but also as a Latina, I've heard many crazy stories hating on Fidel Castro and Che Chavez and all of these like revolutionary icons. I've always been told that they are bad people, right? Especially from the US. And of course I believe them. And I'm not excusing any war crimes. I'm not excusing bad practices or abuse or murder or whatever. But compared to what America has done, how come we don't show that same animosity towards our own country, right? So the thing is that I spent a long time, but not a long time. Recently, I just kind of spent trying to learn more about Fidel Castro, what he stood for, what he did. I think we all know what he did wrong towards the end of his control over Cuba. But what about the things that he did right? And why was the US trying so hard to get him out of control of Cuba? Well, obviously because, they claimed that he was abusing the Cubanos over there, and that America needed to save them, yada yada. Let's look at a brief summary of that, okay?
This was a struggle.
This is basically a very well edited video, a 15-minute edited video, showing what America tried to do to Cuba multiple times in order to gain control of it. This is from Johnny Harris. I sometimes disagree with him because I feel like he doesn't give full contexts of things, but he knows more than me, definitely. And especially when it comes in this specific video, I think he did a good job of making a 15-minute video explaining how hard America tried to get Fidel Castro out of power in Cuba. So let me just fix this here because it's not in the middle, chat. I'm so sorry. I'm so annoying when it comes to this stuff. I need it to be in the middle. I need it to be in the middle, chat. Let's do 14p. You see this gray part of it? That bothers me. You understand? Do you understand my pain right now? Let me look at the right side. Ah! Yoja. That is not symmetrical. Fudge. Is that symmetrical enough? I'm such a nerd. I'm not a nerd. I'm cool. My name is Tamashii. And all I gotta say is Tama. These. Okay. Okay. It's somewhat symmetrical. I'm not gonna touch it because then I'm gonna spend 5 hours trying to fix it. Okay. So yeah. The Operation Northwoods Conspiracy Explained. Let's watch this.
Of Cuban patriots against a Cuban dictator.
On March 13th, 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff put this document in front of the Secretary of Defense for approval from the President. This is a memo prepared by the most senior leaders in the US military, some of the most powerful men in the country. And they're asking for permission to execute a plan to lob mortar shells into their own military bases with some damage to installations, and then to make hijacking attempts against civilian air and surface craft. They're proposing to blow up a US ship in the US naval base Guantanamo Bay, and even to conduct a terror campaign on American soil, exploding a few plastic explosives in carefully chosen spots. We're looking at a plan to blow things up on American soil and then to blame it all on Cuba.
Cuban people.
So again, commit a crime, commit a war crime, basically. Not a war crime. Is it considered a war crime? Just, I mean, definitely a crime, and blame it on a country, basically to have a good reason to get into war with whatever country they're framing. Country framing. That sounds kind of familiar. The U.S. orchestrating a catastrophic tragedy in order for them to have a good enough reason to just completely destroy an innocent country and therefore have control over them and steal their natural resources. I wonder what America went through specifically in 2011. Well, not 2011, stupid. 2001. That made America have an excuse to basically destroy the Middle East. Do you guys get it? You understand what I'm saying? You get it? You wakaru. Fucking hell. Yeah. Oh my god, she's 3D. I'm not 3D. I'm 2D. I'm still 2D. But I do have a new form. Hello, bees. How are ya? I'm talking about Cuba. But yeah, last time I was here, you were small. Yeah, I was small. I had a big head, but now I'm in my true form. It's true. And now I'm talking about Cuba. But yeah, basically, so far from what we learned in this video is that Johnny Harris is gonna talk about how wow, my voice just died. How the US tried to frame Cuba by doing a crime against themselves or a different, like just a crime, and blame it on Cuba so they can go to war with Cuba. So cute though. Thank you very much. Gracias, gracias. Thank you, thank you. So let's continue the video.
People have not yet spoken their final piece.
This operation never happened, but it almost did, and that gets to a big question. Why would some of America's most powerful leaders charged with safeguarding our nation think that their duty would require them to lie to and terrorize the American people? In other words, why were they planning Operation Northwoods?
It is not the first time that communist tanks have rolled over gallant men and women. Let the record show that our restraint is not inexhaustible.
Damn. Hi, Nola.
Before we dive into today's kind of insane video, I need to thank the sponsor, who I'm very
Ethical
grateful
Reacts.
for. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring today's video. For 3 years, maybe, I've been in therapy, and I can say it has truly changed. The thing is, I approve of therapy,
but BetterHelp is shady place to get therapy from. I wouldn't recommend it. But this guy deserves us to watch his ad so he can get money. So ethical reacting, chat.
They have a huge network of tens of thousands of
No, but
licensed
seriously,
therapists, and you
BetterHelp
can
is
start
very
therapy
sketchy.
in as little as 48 hours. And you can choose how you do it. You can do it as a phone call or as a video chat or even as texting. The beauty about this model is that it doesn't bind you to the therapists who are available in your local geographical area. And it makes it so easy to schedule your therapy, to change your schedule, or even to change your therapist for free. Finding a therapist can be hard and emotional and difficult, and BetterHelp makes it easier for you. So if you are somebody who wants to try therapy out, BetterHelp is a fantastic way to try it and see if it could change your life as much as it has changed mine. Because they sponsor today's video, they're giving 10% off the first month for my audience who tries out BetterHelp. There's a link in my description.
No, yeah, if you want to support him, definitely do it.
Sponsoring today's video. Let's dive back into
Okay, let's go back.
Operation Northwoods was a response to a problem the US government had. They called it the Cuba problem. Cuba became a problem for the CIA when they watched this young activist with an affinity for cigars lead a communist revolution on the island, throwing out the American-friendly dictator and nationalizing all the valuable land and industries that American businesses had been getting rich off for decades. This was the Cold War, and communism was now 90 miles away, threatening to spread to other countries in Latin America, countries that American businesses also wanted to continue controlling and exploiting. And any day, this new leader could align with the Soviet Union, giving the US's biggest geopolitical rival a military base within breathing distance of Florida.
That was their worry, by the way, is that communism would spread to other Latin American countries, including being super close to Florida. Okay. The thing is that I think it's kind of sketchy, to say the least. I think it's very sketchy when America starts demonizing a country or something else intensely. I think it's very sketchy when America does that. So usually, I think that they are afraid of losing power, like he said, but like in the sense of it being good. Like if it benefits the people, America will not fucking like it. That's for fucking sure. And it really shows here when they truly saw Cuba as a fucking threat.
This was what the Joint Chiefs called their Cuba problem.
Cuba problem. Shit.
The US had a few solutions to their problem. First, they put an embargo on Cuba, blocking all US exports to the country, except for food and medicine. Second, they stopped buying Cuba's largest export, sugar. This actually ended up backfiring when the Soviet Union stepped in to buy Cuban sugar, kicking off an economic alliance between these two communist countries, exactly what the US didn't want. And third, the US started making plans. Lots of plans. Plans to somehow get rid of Castro, to turn Cuba back into the American business-friendly client state, through whatever means necessary.
And the thing is the reason why Fidel Castro, whether you like him or not, the whole reason why Fidel Castro started a revolution in Cuba is because the people who were in control of Cuba were people who were working for the USA, okay? A bunch of Americans and US companies were profiting from Cuba's, sources, but the Cuban people themselves were still suffering. Of course, that's gonna piss off people, and it only takes a couple of guys who have similar thinking to be like, hey, our people deserve more. We gotta start a revolution and take over our land back, our government back. We must control this. So he kind of just passes through that. I wish he would have explained more of what the US was doing to fucking Cuba to even get them to revolutionize in the first place. And, once Fidel Castro was being very successful in that, he managed to get the US fucking out of Cuba. They didn't like that. And so they did their hardest to have military intervention in Cuba and try to kill Fidel Castro and just ruin the government. Okay?
In one of the secret plans called Operation Zapata, the CIA recruited 1,500 Cuban exiles who fled to Miami during the Cuban Revolution. It was this little CIA-funded army called Brigade 2506, and the goal was to have them invade Cuba and remove Castro from power. So the CIA trains them at this camp in the mountains of Guatemala, where they had just recently executed a coup and installed a US-friendly dictator. And right in the middle of the planning stages of this operation, JFK...
They installed a US-friendly dictator? I don't know why. Maybe he didn't mean to, but he just says that so casually. It's like a passing thought. Oh yeah, they just... they installed a US approved dictator. It's fine. It's all good. Like, okay, are we not supposed to question that? Is that good? Like, is that the USA being a good country? Not an evil fucking parasite that tries to steal resources from other countries without helping their people in a positive way? Think about it, chat. Like installing Windows 10. I don't get it. What do you mean?
wins the presidency.
Oh, installing a dictator. Okay, I see.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I'm very sad that
to invade Cuba.
JFK was very involved in trying to destroy Cuba.
Seen exiled Cubans. The CIA briefs him on it, this plan to fix the Cuba problem by forcibly unseating Castro using Cuban exiles. And after some debate, JFK approves the plan. So on the 17th of April 1961, they launched their invasion. Brigade 2506 landed on Playa Girón with the plan to invade the island and spark a popular revolution against Castro.
The assault has begun on the dictatorship of Fidel Castro. Landings were effected by rebels at several...
But it was a complete failure.
They
Castro
sucked.
had found out about the invasion ahead of time. A radio station on the beach had spotted the invading ships arriving and called for help. Several of the invading ships sank on the coral reef, and the invading forces were met with immediate resistance from Cuban armed forces who defeated them within 3 days. Most of them were captured. 9 U.S. servicemen actually flew combat missions in support of this invasion, 4 of which were shot down and killed in the process, something the U.S. government and the CIA would go on to deny for almost 30 years. But the point is that this invasion failed miserably, and JFK and his administration were to blame.
For too long, we have fixed our eyes on...
It's just like America sucks. Like, yeah. Actually, like, if you think about it, they just suck at doing invasions. They're good at destroying and ruining countries. Slowly but surely. But when it comes to, like, literally invading, they suck. Even in Vietnam, like, even then they had better weapons, better technology, so to say. And the Vietnamese, like, beat their asses. Here, they actually did a Navy blockade. They were attacking them by sea and with airplanes too. I don't even know if Cuba had that during that time, but fucking hell, they still beat up the US fucking military from colonizing them. Just, the US truly fucking sucks, Chad. Like, they suck. That's what I'm saying, like, I don't know why they're so thirsty for war when they suck at it. And they just ruin things and make things worse. I guess that benefits them, though. But essentially, like, they just fucking suck.
Traditional military needs, on armies prepared to cross borders, on missiles poised for flight. Now it should be clear that this is no longer enough.
JFK would later fire the CIA director, holding him responsible for the disastrous invasion plan that we know as the Bay of Pigs. But this didn't change anything. The US government was still obsessed with removing Castro from power. They just needed a new plan. So JFK initiates his own plan, called the Cuba Project, aka Operation Mongoose. Over the next year, the CIA employs hundreds of spies to collect intelligence on Cuba. They send submarines on recon missions to Cuban waters. They fund anti-Castro protest movements, spreading propaganda throughout the country.
And that is important, chat, because that spread within the country in Cuba, and that also spread in the US. Okay, at the end of the day, most of it is propaganda, and that's why you hear a bunch of shit of people hating Cuba and people hating Fidel Castro. And not saying he's a perfect guy or that he's the greatest leader on earth, but compared to like fucking other leaders, compared to Trump, you know, Fidel Castro managed to give Cuba universal health care. And he implemented what was like 10% of the country's budget into education, specifically when it came to medicine. And that's why Cuba has like the world, like so many doctors, that whenever a humanitarian emergency happens in different countries, Cuba's like usually the first country to send their doctors over there, especially like during COVID. Cuba helped with the COVID crisis. Like, that's what I'm saying. America can't do that shit. Fucking hell, you go to you go on an ambulance and that's $5,000, $5,000 for the ambulance to take you to the doctors. You get a CT scan, that's like $50,000 already there. You haven't even gotten treated. You will die from medical debt in the US. But people, you know, again, like, there's no perfect leader, but when you compare to America and specifically Fidel Castro, that successfully brought, you know, free universal health care, you gotta kind of think critically here. Especially when the US funded a bunch of propaganda to hate Fidel Castro in Cuba. And that's why you'll hear a bunch of Cuban Americans as well. So not all of them, some of them will also be hating on Fidel Castro and call him a dictator and stuff. And even me, I mean, I was raised to learn that specific part of history in that way. That's why everyone has, or not has, but needs to do their own research when it comes to history and learn when something is obviously, how do you say, forced propaganda, like forced bias that the government tries to put in your head. I like to say that it's better to learn history from all sides, not just from your own country's perspective, but from other countries' perspective. Then you can make your analysis. Then you can have your opinion. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. The American dream was a lie. No, yeah, I mean, yeah, sadly enough, yeah, a bunch of people admire America and the American dream, the freedom for all, fight for what's right, and then you see all of this shit, and yeah, you become disillusioned. It is a lie, unfortunately.
They sabotage Cuban infrastructure to create chaos, and they make dozens more plans to assassinate Castro directly, including preparing poisonous pills to be planted in a beverage to be drunk by Castro. They even hired the American mafia to deliver the pills, knowing that the mafia had their casinos kicked out of Havana during the revolution and would want revenge. But none of this worked. The assassination attempts all fell apart. Fidel Castro still remained in power, and his support wasn't wavering. And the US military was getting desperate. They needed to solve the Cuba problem before the Soviets could get more involved on the island. So after all these botched assassination attempts and failed invasions, the Joint Chiefs of Staff concluded that the only way to get rid of Castro was for the US military itself to invade Cuba and take him out. But they knew that the US public would not support an outright invasion. They needed to create a reason, a justification. And this gets us back to our document. The one that went to the Secretary of Defense for the President's approval. This cover and deception plan to make attacks on American targets, fake attacks that will be blamed on Cuba to raise tensions between the US and Cuba to justify an invasion.
blow up a military, what was that? Cover and deception plan to blame Cuba, but what was it? Bomb a what?
The one that went to the Secretary of Defense for the president's approval. This cover and deception plan to make attacks on
Exploding a few plastic bombs
American targets. Fake attack
would blow up a US ship and then blame it on Cuba. Jesus Christ. They're willing to kill their own. They're willing to kill their own. They're willing to kill the fucking veterans in order to just have an excuse. A lie, basically. But still an excuse to fucking invade Cuba. And they do, America does this shit all the time. All the time. 9/11.
attacks that will be blamed on Cuba to raise tensions between the US and Cuba to justify an invasion, a legitimate provocation as the basis for a US military intervention in Cuba. In other words, a lie to the American public and the international community, a series of false flags to get what they wanted, and all detailed in this classified document that was only meant for a few people, with hopes that the president would approve in the spring of 1962.
If the nations of this hemisphere should fail to meet their commitments against outside communist penetration, then I want it clearly understood that this government will not hesitate in meeting its primary obligations, which are to the security of our nation.
So let's see what this plan actually says. It starts with the US military base at Guantanamo Bay, where they would start rumors using fake radio stations and get American-friendly locals to stage fake attacks on the base, starting riots in the surrounding area. Another proposed part of the plan was to blow up a US ship and blame it on Cuba. This was specifically called out as a, quote, remember the Maine incident, referencing the sinking of an American warship in Cuba in the late 1800s that the US used to justify intervening in Cuba back then to fight the Spanish. This is often thought of as a planned sabotage to justify the intervention. And here was the US military in the 60s at it again. The document predicts that the newspapers would start reporting on the casualties, causing a helpful wave of national indignation.
Wow.
They also wanted to create a fake terrorist campaign on American soil in
A fake terrorist campaign in Miami?
Miami or Washington. They wanted to sink boats of Cuban refugees and stage the shooting of refugee targets, and even suggested exploding a few plastic bombs in American cities. These weren't all going to be pretend. They even say in the document that they would go to the extent of wounding people and then making fake arrests with prepared documents so it could all be widely publicized, making Cuba look like an irresponsible government worthy of American intervention. They thought through having American Air Force pilots fly over places like Nicaragua and drop bombs on cane fields to burn them down using weapons from the Soviet Union. But for this to work, they would have to be flying Cuban military-style aircraft. They would need to ensure that their planes were properly painted. They would also use these planes to harass American civilian aircraft, making it look like it was the Cubans doing this. They planned a fake hijacking of commercial planes to blame the Cuban government, or to fake shooting down a civilian airliner. And if that wasn't enough, the Joint Chiefs planned to create an incident which will make it appear that communist Cuban jets have destroyed a U.S. Air Force aircraft while it was flying over international waters in an unprovoked attack. Operation Northwoods was a reckless plan to lie and hurt people, proposed by top government leaders who were more and more desperate to invade Cuba. And they wanted to move fast. They say in just a few months. They needed to do this so that this attack wouldn't involve the Soviet Union, who still hadn't established any defense pact or military bases in Cuba. So what we're looking at here is the increasing desperation of the US military to achieve its goal, to solve the Cuba problem. If JFK would just approve this plan, then the military would get to work, blowing things up, attacking their bases, and terrorizing the American people. But he rejected it. Operation Northwoods never happened.
He was too peaceful. He tried though. He tried, but I think this is part of the reason why he got sniped in the head eventually, because clearly he was kind of different from other presidents. He really did try his best to, you know, not without, you know, not try to cause trouble to other people. I don't know. I felt, it feels like he cared for the people. And it seems like he really did try to demonize Cuba and have control of it. And the fact that he couldn't follow through to this specific plan of basically lying to the public by cosplaying as Cubans and committing a bunch of crimes around the Latin American countries and in the US really says a lot. Oh, hi, California Minecraft. It's been a while. Thank you for redeeming first, second, and third. Thank you, Zaya36 as well, for redeeming first, second, and third. I'm so sorry. I don't even have the stream elements thingy in this specific, specifically here. Give me a second. I'll put it on here for y'all. My bad. I forgot to put it in this specific OBS profile for you guys. I'll be able, so you guys can see your faces here. Copy URL. Sources. Browser. First. Okay. What is it, chat? 1920 by 1080? 1080? I believe. Aha, there it is. Refresh, damn you. I'm so sorry. New model, yes. This is my new true form. Yeah, thank you for noticing. Imagine if you hadn't noticed. Wait, Callie and Saya, can you try that again? Because it's not showing on here. My bad, y'all. Actually, let me refund you. California. No, yeah, but isn't it insane that, you know, they tried so hard to demonize Cuba by cosplaying as Cubans, and then JFK said, hey, no, let's not do that. And it turns out that later on, eventually JFK would be sniped in the head. Something to think about. A known error occurred. Yeah, I'm noticing here that it's not even showing it as a request. All requests. Yeah, what the hell? Oh, here, let me reject this. And I'll reject yours. Okay, and then complete all. I think I refunded your thingies, though. It should have worked, hopefully. But yeah, let's continue. JFK refused to do that.
JFK's rejection of this plan is one reason that there was a rift between him and the military, with the military wanting to take a hard line on Cuba and JFK feeling the sting of the Bay of Pigs invasion, thinking that something like this was too much of a risk. A month later, another document came to him, the Joint Chiefs following up with another memo saying that the only way to remove the communist regime was military intervention by the United States, and that Cuba was a vital base of operations for espionage, sabotage, and subversion against other countries in the region. The fear was that communism would spread across Latin America because of this, and time is running out.
God forbid communism.
The rift between JFK and the military continued during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the Joint Chiefs hoped to deploy nuclear missiles against the Soviets and invade Cuba. But JFK stood up to the military once again and said no. JFK eventually went on to deny General Lehman Lemnitzer another term as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, likely because of his leading role in planning Operation Northwoods. And looking at this bizarre episode in American history, you might feel like this is a moment where our system worked. Military leaders tried to abuse their power to launch an unprovoked and illegal invasion of another country, and the president stopped them. Checks and balances, right? But the reality is, all these men have the same goal: Castro out of power and Cuba under their control again. Their disagreement was one of just a few degrees. The means, not the ends. The reality is that the US was one man, just one person, away from this operation happening, from a full-scale invasion. If JFK had lost the presidency to Nixon, would Operation Northwoods have happened? We can't say conclusively, but it certainly raises the probability. But what's more startling is that, outside of a few norms and some ideas about government, nothing fundamentally has changed in our government. The political military machine still runs on the same software it did in the 60s. If the US government felt like it, and had a big enough enemy, a big enough threat to American interests, it could happen again.
The Iraqi regime has plotted to develop anthrax and nerve gas. And
that's what they did to the Middle East, chat.
States like these,
9/11, man.
Terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
Quick, someone throw the shoe. True. Fucking hell. Throw it, chat. Here, fuck. I'll throw this thing at him. Plum. No, that was a good, like, really quick summary of everything. The thing is, he did a good job, I think. Respect to Johnny Harris for this specific video. But the thing is like, Cuba did end up suffering from America's constant attack on it, because they just did everything in their power to try to kill Fidel Castro. Fucking hate Dubia. I can't pronounce it. No, and but yeah, like Cuba ended up suffering, of course. Fidel Castro. Oh, it showed. I'm so sorry to Callie and Zaya. Oh my god, Allie literally just took first place, even though Callie was supposed to be first place. Yikes. Sorry, y'all. Now Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller are creating Cuba's fuel shortage. No, the thing is, they are, and again, this is all connected to Venezuela. Venezuela was one of the main oil providers to Cuba, and look what happened to Venezuela, and now they're literally punishing Cuba still for daring to reject American imperialism. Okay? This is literally just a fucking punishment. Because what do we benefit from starving the Cuban people, from removing a very important asset such as oil for, for energy, so hospitals can have energy, so airplanes can have jet fuel, so people can have, electricity in their homes. Like, what do we as an American society, country, people gain from doing this to Cuba? Nada, nothing. Literally nothing. We're literally just that petty, and we're not even negotiating. Marco Rubio is lying about trying to negotiate with Cuba, and they haven't. I checked earlier today. Apparently he still hasn't done anything. Like, there's no reliable, like, proof of him actually trying to fucking talk to Cuba and come to an agreement. Nada, nothing. Honestly, I expect China to swoop in and give some renewable energy resources to Cuba after US soft power gets weaker. The thing is, because Claudia, Mexico, the second country that provided, the second most country that provided oil to Cuba, is under attack by the US as well. They're being threatened by the US. Trump is saying, if you give Cuba oil, if you sell oil to Cuba, we're gonna give you a shit ton of tariffs. And right now, Claudia is trying to negotiate that. Claudia is the president of Mexico, by the way, the new president of Mexico. She's trying to negotiate that right now with America. But they're still gonna send food and renewable energy to Cuba. The thing is, No matter how much renewable energy sources you send to Cuba, no matter how many solar panels you send to Cuba, you still need oil. Everything on Earth so far, not on Earth, but when it comes to energy, is solely reliant on mostly oil. Okay, for example, the fucking airlines are getting canceled in Cuba because there isn't enough oil to fill up the airplanes. Well, you can't just slap a fucking, what's it called, a solar panel on a airplane and you know, get the energy you need. You still need oil for essentials. But maybe it will take NATO falling apart though. She's a pink-tied candidate, right? Like democratic socialism or a democracy type of deal, or president, lol, not candidate. She's she claims to be a democratic socialist. And so far, although slow, very slow, she's kind of showing that. A lot of things that are happening in Mexico are things that I never would have imagined would happen in Mexico. And you know, I'm skeptical of her, but to be fair, I am a dirty Yank American, a Mexican American, yes, but I was born in America and I don't know the true politics in Mexico. But my father says he's finally seeing hope in Mexico, and he hated AMLO, which was the previous president. But AMLO kind of started this they got the ball rolling and providing like social programs for the people of Mexico and you know, fixing things like that. And then Claudia came in and she's doing more. It's a very slow process. A lot of people are skeptical, but she has been helping the Mexican society. And this is what I'm saying. Okay, Mexico might become the next Cuba if they refuse to listen to America. And so I can kind of understand why she's debating on sending oil to America despite the tariffs or not. Because that's basically saying they're not under control of the American government anymore. They're not going to bend to the America's will, right? Well, what happens when you don't bend to America's will? You succeed in becoming independent and making your, well, not independent, but you know, doing things in your own terms, right? Doing things for your people in your own terms without the control of the American government. What happens? Well, Cuba happens. That's what happens. Cuba had a revolution for a reason, and it's because the US government was abusing them. And when that succeeded, America just was holding a grudge. And it still is holding a grudge. Now that they were able to take advantage of Cuba to this extent, Cuba is at the brink of total exhaustion, of total strangulation from losing oil supply. And it's just a shame that Latin America isn't uniting against the US at this moment. So right now, it really depends on what Claudia does as well. Again, they provided oil to. They're the second provider of oil to Cuba, and now they're just facing this very harsh predicament. So, as I was saying before, that when it comes to Fidel Castro's failures, any sort of electoralist leftist strategy is going to move slowly, if at all. I mean, yeah, but it's better than what Mexico used to be, okay? Definitely. And they're already doing somewhat better than the US. I think the US is literally the absolute failure when it comes to like government strategy. You shouldn't, like, when you think leftist, you shouldn't really imagine American leftists, if that makes sense. I don't think the leftism in American politics should be considered at all when it comes to leftism in other countries. Especially look at Fidel Castro. He was considered a leftist as well. Or what's his name? Something. The right hand man of Castro. He was also a leftist. There's a reason why they did a revolution, and it was a successful one, because they don't just sit there and play nice. They actually like go out there and fight for what's right. When it comes to American leftism, they're fucking useless pieces of shits, okay? Like, Jesus Christ. Nothing. I just cannot believe that to this day, we still have nothing. What do we have, honestly? As an American citizen, what is our benefit? Like big food for cheap, but that's not even a thing anymore. Like, what do we get? Nada. Nothing. They just exploit other countries. They exploit us. And we don't get anything. And we're just okay with that. And that's leftism. They're just okay with it. Oh, we do our best, but they don't do anything. But then the same leftists start demonizing, like, or not just leftists, but mostly Democrats in the US start demonizing people like Fidel Castro because they weren't willing to just do nothing. They actually started a revolution and succeeded. I just mean, from an anarchist perspective, God, that emote distracts me. Oh, where any revolution concerned with capturing the state moves slowly. Yeah. Like China, as much beef as I have with them, has actually been doing work with Dengism. But Dengism is about maintaining soft and hard power while waiting for the contradictions of capital to weaken their opposition. Hello there, just want to give a little news. Discord next month's gonna ask for your ID so it can verify age for the kids, they say. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I mentioned earlier today that I was talking about, obviously, the Epstein files and how Epstein was working with the Prime Minister of Israel, and how he told the Prime Minister of Israel to look into Palantir, a cyber security company that specifically aids the IDF in tracking Palestinians to abuse them and kill them. And now Palantir, that same company that Jeffrey Epstein was talking to the Prime Minister about, is creating tracking systems for ICE to kill both undocumented immigrants and citizens of the United States of America. That's what I talked about an hour ago. And now with the Discord thing that's happening, the tracking system where they're IDing you, right, for the safety of the children, guess who the new owner of Discord is? Guess where that guy is from, chat? Just give me a guess. Because it's not a fucking surprise. I'm gonna try to verify by taking a picture of Chuck Schumer. 4chan. No. The from the land, the eel land. No, what country? What country? Russia. No. God damn it. Israel. Okay? Like I just said, they're working with ICE, a Palantir, an Israeli company, working with ICE to track protesters and undocumented immigrants and citizens for ICE to kill them and abuse them. It's the same tracking systems that they use in Israel to attack and kill Palestinians. And now the owner of Discord is from Israel and wants to track our information by IDing us because they are so concerned about the children's safety. Think about it. Didn't want to say the word. Israel, baby, yay! Yeah, right. Just like Yik Yak. Just like Yik Yak. TikTok as well. You're right. The reason why the US bought TikTok from China, well, it wasn't China, it was from Hong Kong, right? They took the rights of TikTok, and now the US owns TikTok precisely because people were protesting Israel. It's all connected, guys. Fucking hell. Their spy didn't kill himself and got kicked from Xbox Live, and now they want our gamer chat. That's true. I cannot believe, like, and they're trying to tell us that, oh, fucking Jeffrey Epstein is not in Israel playing Fortnite, even though, like, the account associated with him was fucking randomly playing Fortnite in Israel. The guy from Israel, the confirmed spy from Israel, whose name was Jeffrey Epstein. You're telling me that it's a coincidence that his account is suddenly active all of a sudden in specifically fucking Israel? We can't have anything anymore without Israel taking it. That's why you gotta speak out on it. Okay? This also connects to Cuba, because think about it. What country spoke against Israel's genocide of Palestine? I wonder if anyone knows that. What country actually, like, took a stand against Israel and went to say that Israel's committing an apartheid genocide? What country did that? Do you guys know? More like it isn't real. Am I right? True. It's not real. It's true. I'm putting these on your forehead. No. South Africa. Exactly. South Africa. It was South Africa. Why? Because South Africa suffered from apartheid. So clearly, I think it was Ireland too. Ireland joined them, but it was South Africa. The thing is that Cuba has ties to South Africa. And this is something that I didn't know. And these ties are very important, chat. South Africa suffered from apartheid. It was controlled by a bunch of white people, okay? And you're telling me that white people had more rights than Africans in South fucking Africa? Of course they needed help to take over their country again, because a bunch of white people were keeping slaves in South Africa and forcing them to not have basic needs. Fucking hell. Of course they had to fight against that. And Nelson Mandela was imprisoned because he helped encourage the militia in South Africa to take over the country. Okay? To free his people from apartheid. This is why South Africa stood up for Palestine and still stands up for Palestine to this day. Okay? Very important piece of information. How does this connect to Cuba, however? How does this fucking connect to Cuba? Okay? Well, look at this. I didn't even know of this until recently, chat. I didn't even know of this until recently, literally today. And I was fucking amazed that Cuba is as involved as South Africa in fighting against apartheid. But let me reach out. That's what they do. You have something cool? Too bad. This was promised for us 5 years ago. Fuck you, it's mine now. Exactly, Shark. Ireland got it rough from Turfland. Yep. And North Korea too, no? White people, including Elon Musk's dad. Yep. I'm gonna start taking stuff and not paying for stuff just to say it was promised to me by birth, because it says so in the Bible. By the way, your model earrings are super cunty. I love them. Thank you. I love hearts, and therefore I have heart earrings. Gracias. But no, yeah. What is the connection between Fidel Castro, the dictator, supposed dictator of Cuba that America had tried to kill millions of times and failed terribly, by the way, terribly. And basically Fidel Castro made one of the most successful revolutions in history, right? Well, let's look at this. The untold story of Cuba's support for African independence movements under Fidel Castro.
To turn to the relationship between Castro and Nelson Mandela, of course, the South African.
Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro, chat, were friends. Do you understand this? And here is why.
President in prison for decades himself.
Okay,
in 1991, a year after he was freed, and a few years before he became president, Nelson Mandela visited Cuba to thank President Fidel Castro. This is when they first met.
Before we say anything,
Antes de hablar absolutamente de cualquier tema,
you must tell me when you are coming to South
me
Africa.
tiene que decir cuándo viene para Sudáfrica.
You say, no,
No, un momentito.
Es seguro, sí, yo recibí.
The sooner the better.
And we have had a visit from a wide variety of
Invitado una
people.
gran cantidad de personas.
And our friend Cuba,
Y nuestro amigo Cuba,
which helped us in training our people,
que nos ayudó a entrenar a nuestra gente,
gave us resources to
que nos
get
dio
on with our
recursos,
struggle,
que nos ayudaron tanto en nuestra
trained
lucha,
our people
que
as
entrenó a nuestros
doctors and so
combatientes, a
on.
nuestros médicos.
You have not come to our country.
Cuba no ha venido a visitarnos, usted no ha ido a visitar.
When are you coming?
¿Cuándo viene?
No he visitado a mi patria
I
surafricana.
haven't visited my South African homeland
Me la
yet.
quiero como una patria.
I love it as a
Pero por él
homeland.
y por el pueblo.
I love it as a homeland as I love you and the South African people.
He's like, okay, well, when the fuck are you coming? Chat. And it was hard to hear, but I'm just gonna paraphrase again. Fidel Castro helped train the militias that were under that were listening to orders of Nelson Mandela. Fidel Castro trained those militias to fight against apartheid. Okay? The thing is, you know how far away Cuba is from South Africa? Fidel Castro sent his doctors and he sent his soldiers to South Africa to fight against apartheid. To give medical aid to South Africa who was suffering from apartheid. And this is why Nelson Mandela is urging him a year after he was released from prison. By the way, he was imprisoned for fighting against apartheid and succeeding, and for refusing to condemn his militias for fighting against apartheid, by the way. He got out of prison and a year after that, he's like, you need to come and visit us because we are grateful. I didn't fucking know that. I've never seen Fidel Castro and Nelson Mandela in the same fucking room. Like, I was just in total fucking shock. That's how intense the American propaganda, okay, is. I'm so fucking wow. Nelson Mandela spoke for the Palestinian people. And I bet you Fidel Castro did too, man. Wow. Do you understand how powerful that is? I'm gonna manifest my destiny to raid this garbage dumpster behind the grocery store. What are you referencing? Also, fun fact, Marx and Lincoln were pen pals. I didn't even know that. Despite Lincoln being pretty moderate before the Civil War. Damn, Nelson and Fidel took pen pals to a different level. It was more than pen pals. It was Fidel Castro's like, hey, I know how you feel. I'm gonna help your country. That's all it was. Perhaps further than the USSR was from the CNT when the USSR refused to aid the Spanish anarchists before they sided with the fascists. Sorry, still salty over the Spanish Civil War. Never forgiving Emmels for that shit. Crazy shit. Oh, I read something else. But specifically of this that I'm speaking of, I just want people to know, because I was raised by both my not only from the US, but even my own family would tell me about, you know, how Fidel Castro was this terrible person and a dictator and stuff. Pretty sure because they were also brainwashed by America's propaganda. But then I see this, okay? And if you watched the simple Minecraft educational stream last week, we all know that Nelson Mandela is considered a hero in history. Why does he love Fidel Castro? That's a contradiction right there. And there's a reason for that. So let's hear what these people have to say about this specific relationship.
Imploring Fidel Castro to come to South Africa. And this is Fidel Castro speaking in South Africa in 1998.
Conviértase Sudáfrica en modelo de un mundo futuro más justo y más humano.
Let South Africa be a model of a more just and more humane future.
Si ustedes pueden, todos podemos.
If you can do it, we will all be able to do it.
That was Fidel Castro speaking in South Africa, and before that, Nelson Mandela, just after he got out of jail, visiting Castro in Cuba to invite him to South Africa. Bill Fletcher, talk about the relationship of Cuba, Fidel Castro, with the continent of Africa and liberation struggles there.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Amy, because there was a special relationship that existed between the Cuban Revolution in Africa from almost the beginning. The Cubans were very supportive of the Algerian struggle against the French, which succeeded in 1962. They went on to support the various anti-colonial movements in Africa, including and particularly the anti-Portuguese movements in Guinea-Bissau, Angola, and Mozambique. And they were unquestioning in their support for the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. It's the Angolan struggle that receives a lot of attention. And one of the things that was not understood at the time by many of us in the United States, including many of us on the left, was that when Cuban troops went to Angola, they did not go at the behest of the Soviet Union. In fact, the Soviet Union was not in favor of Cuban troops going there. The Cubans went there out of a sense of solidarity. I mean, they actually believed in solidarity. And they went there to stop the invasion that was in the process of taking place by the South African apartheid troops and their allies in the FNLA and UNITA. And so this relationship has been very, very strong. And you could tell in the words of the late President Mandela that this bond, this love for the Cuban people and for the Cuban Revolution, that bond also translated into a feeling in Black America of a certain kind of bond, a certain support for the Cuban Revolution, feeling that this was a revolution that paid attention to Africa, but also paid attention to the struggle around racism within Cuba. Although obviously there were certain limitations to that, but I would say that Cuba probably made the greatest advances in the struggle around racism of any country in the Western Hemisphere.
To turn to Cuba's role in Angola, this is a clip from the 2001 documentary Fidel, The Untold Story. That was directed by Estela Bravo. You hear the narrator, Vlastavrana, first.
Right from the beginning, Cuba's revolutionary ideals not only spread throughout Latin America, but also forged strong ties with national liberation leaders such as Sékou Touré, Amílcar Cabral, Julius Nyerere, Zamora Machel, and Agostinho Neto.
When the regular South African troops invaded Angola, we couldn't stand by and do nothing. When the MPLA asked for our help, we offered them the help they needed.
In 1975, as Angola moved towards independence from Portugal, the CIA, along with the apartheid government of South Africa, tried to bring down the new Angolan government. At the request of the Angolan president, Fidel sent 36,000 troops to keep the South African forces from attacking Luanda, the capital.
Wow.
For many Cubans, whose ancestors were African slaves, the fight in Angola was a way to repair a debt to history. In 14 years of war, over 300,000 Cubans, doctors, teachers, and engineers, as well as soldiers, played an important role in Angola. More than 2,000 lost their lives.
Wow.
In 1988, Fidel sent in more Cuban troops for the decisive battle at Quito Cuanavale and directed operations from Cuba. The defeat of the South African army drove a large nail into the coffin of apartheid and helped advance the struggle of the South African people.
That's a clip from the 2001 documentary Fidel, The Untold Story, directed by Estela Bravo. Now let's go.
And the thing is, like, when they say South African, that they were fighting against the South African troops, for those who are confused, during that time, those were just white people. Okay? But they call themselves South African, just like Elon Musk considers himself a South African. You know, they were basically the people who were a part of the apartheid. Okay? So, Fidel trained the people who were fighting against apartheid and basically helped them be free of apartheid. That's why Nelson Mandela also ended up becoming president of South Africa eventually, after being released from jail.
Go to the film CIA and Angolan Revolution. In this clip, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger explains why the U.S. was concerned about the Cuban troops that Fidel Castro had sent to fight in Angola. After Kissinger, you hear Fidel Castro himself.
We thought, with respect to Angola, that if the Soviet Union could intervene at such distances from areas that were far from the traditional Russian security concerns, and when Cuban forces could be introduced to distant trouble spots, and if the West could not find a counter to that then the whole international system could be destabilized.
It was a question of globalizing our struggle vis-à-vis the globalized pressures and harassment of the U.S.
Yeah.
In this respect, it did not coincide with the Soviet viewpoint. We acted. But without their cooperation. Quite the opposite.
That from the
Wow.
film CIA and
So yeah, like Cuba got, made business with the USSR, but everything that they did in terms of like fighting for other countries was out of their own will, even against the will of Russia, simply because they understood that they needed to fight against American abuse, American imperialism.
And the Angolan Revolution, Bill Fletcher, as we wrap up this section on Cuba in Africa.
There's a story that I heard, Amy, about what happened in Angola on the night of independence. And there was panic in the capital. South African troops and their allies were approaching, and no one knew what was going to happen. And then at midnight, people went down to the docks, and out of the darkness came Cuban troops, Cuban ships, that then landed troops. And the look on the face of the person who told me the story, who witnessed this, was something that I'll never forget. That the sense that they had been saved at a critical moment in an act that had not been driven by the Soviet Union, but had been driven by a belief in solidarity and a particular relationship between Cuba and Africa. And that's something that the U.S. mainstream media is completely ignoring at this moment.
Yep.
And Che Guevara would be in Africa, right, fighting for leading Cuban forces before he would ultimately die in Latin America.
That's correct. He went to the
Che
Democratic
Guevara,
Republic of the Congo and was fighting a neo-colonial regime.
The thing is, they even fought in Congo, Chad. We just talked about Congo as well. We talked about Congo and how the UAE is exploiting them, and the US is letting it happen, and it's all connected to Israel as well. Yet Che Guevara, the right-hand man of Fidel Castro, was out there trying to protect the people of Congo. But they don't teach you that. I just found this out today. Today. This is why Cuba right now needs our fucking help. Why is everyone turning their cheek, pretending nothing's happening, when Cuba has been out of solidarity only, not to gain any political anything, not to benefit a political ally, not to benefit themselves? They purposely went to different countries that were being colonized and helped them to fight against that. We can't turn our eyes away from Cuba now, after they've defended countries, after they've given countries their doctors, their medical discoveries, even humanitarian aid. And right now, Cuba is at the brink of total collapse because they don't have oil. They don't have any oil. They're running out of oil because Venezuela's gone, and now Mexico's debating if they should give Cuba oil or not. It's terrible.
That ironically, he was working with Kabila, Laurent Kabila, in the beginning, but the forces there were very poorly organized. They weren't really ready to carry out a revolution, and the Cuban advisors withdrew ultimately because the conditions were not ripe.
Speaking about Che, I thought I would turn right now to Che Guevara. I want to turn to another clip from the film Fidel, The Untold Story, directed by Estela Bravo. This is Fidel Castro talking about Che Guevara following his execution in Bolivia in 1967.
Si queremos un modelo de hombre.
If we want a model of a man who belongs not to our time, but to the future,
de corazón digo,
I would say with all my heart that that model is Che.
In 1997, 3 decades after he was killed, Che Guevara's remains were found and returned to Cuba. Fidel Castro talked more about him in the film Fidel.
I dream about him often. I dream that I'm talking to him, that he's alive. It's a very special thing. It's hard to accept the fact that he's dead. Why is that? I'd say it's because he's always present. Always present everywhere.
That from Fidel by Estela Bravo. We're going to go to break and then come back and talk about the effect of Cuba and Fidel Castro and Che Guevara in Latin America. This is Democracy Now! As we look at the life and legacy of Fidel Castro. He died on Friday at the age of 90. Stay with us.
And that was a clip just describing, you know, the untold stories of Cuba's support for African independence and other movements under Fidel Castro. Something that I've been totally blindsided by. I couldn't believe it. I even actually sent a message to Dad. I'm like, Dad, I was like, Gordo, fucking hell. I think Dad, he's been very brainwashed, and because of that, I have as well. And so once I started like realizing things about how screwed up our history was and how certain things are not truthful from the American side, I tried telling my dad about it, and we've had many fights over like very political fights and you know, all that stuff. And literally like 10, I guess, like what, yeah, like over 10 years later, you know, Palestine, me and him disagreed over Palestine 5 years ago, and now he's starting to see the reality of things, and he's slowly kind of trying to be more open to other interpretations, I suppose, of history, basically real history at this point. He replied to me. I told Dad about like Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, and I'm just like, Dad, I am as surprised as you are right now. Everything that you told me, everything that you learned, everything that I learned, that I heard of, even in this has been wrong. And I gotta research more on this because, like I said, the fact that Fidel Castro was best friends with Nelson Mandela is just something I was never taught, you know? And this is why it goes back to why America tried so hard to kill Castro and to gain power, complete control over Cuba, because they were afraid that quote unquote communism or quote unquote socialism or whatever, okay, was going to infect the other countries that surrounded Cuba. But Fidel Castro even went all the way to Africa to fight against colonialism, and that's what America was afraid of? Think about that. Let's just think critically. Everything that we've been taught is a fucking lie. And the US spent millions of dollars in propaganda, both in Cuba and in places where a bunch of Cuban Americans live in the US, or probably outside of the US, to and other, like, just people like you and me, to demonize Cuba, but not demonize America for abusing Cuba. And right now, Cuba needs our help. They also don't teach that MLK was a socialist. Yeah, Martin Luther King was a socialist. Why do you think he's dead? The Red Scare persists to this day. No, yeah. when I was watching Hassan, you know, and I still have the Red Scare in me. Basically, what the Red Scare is like the socialist scare or the communism scare. You don't want to associate with that because, ooh, they're the bad guys, right? They're the dictators. But when I first like met Hassan, I think everyone hates Hassan at first sight. Let's be for real here. But even when I would consistently watch him, I still refuse to call myself a socialist or a communist. I feel I'm very independent, you know. I think my belief system relies in fairness and equality for all. I feel like I still have a lot to learn, especially when it comes to socialism, because I don't even know enough about Che Guevara or Fidel Castro or Karl Marx. Like, you know, I haven't studied enough socialism to even know if I want to identify as such. But still, like, I'm leaning towards that because I'm just reading history. That's all it takes. I'm just reading history and realizing that the US democracy is a fucking lie. It's a fucking lie. Definitely. So, you know, if something is rooted in America demonizing it, it's probably because they were doing something right. And if it ended up going wrong, it's because the US interfered, okay, and ruined it. It could have been good, and the US ruined it, okay? Hassan is kind of a himbo. He is a himbo. As someone who has done the reading, it's mostly intellectual masturbation. Everything past the tools to analyze how our system doesn't work for meeting people needs is arguments for how to build a better world. I think, honestly, yeah, it's usually just, you know, intellectualism. I think what we truly need is just actual activism, like going out there and doing something about it. Yeah, I'm talking about it, of course, but like organizing and all that good stuff, right? I think America likes speaking about how they're the moral country and, you know, all that good stuff, but they don't do shit. They actually end up ruining things more. And it kind of has led to Americans just being caught. Like, willfully, the average American is a willful American cuck. Like, they're okay with being abused. They're okay with not having fucking insurance, medical insurance, anything. Not getting paid a good hourly wage. Alabama's still like $7 an hour. Not even probably $5 an hour. And they're okay with it, you know? They believe in the economy to benefit the rich people, but not the people themselves. You know, they hate themselves. They hate the homeless, but do nothing to help the homeless. You know, they're just okay with elite power succeeding while they die in the streets. And I say this because I used to be the same way. You know, when I would face discrimination in the US, or when my family would face discrimination in the US, when someone would racially profile my family and threaten our fucking lives, as a child, the first thing in my head was, well, that's just how that's just how it is. That's life. Why complain about it? If you complain about it, you're a little bitch. Suffer like me. No, you're supposed to fight against that, man. And actually try to change it. Agreed. I'm never gonna tell someone to not read, but there isn't a list of books you need to read to be a leftist, socialist, or communist. Just join an organization like food distribution, Antifa, Black, tenants or labor unions, etc., and it will be better. Education than a book by a crusty dead white guy. No, yeah, it's like actually putting yourself out there, joining protests, joining talks, you know. I do that here in Japan a lot. I used to, at least. It's kind of expensive to go travel to the city though. But yeah, organizing with Japanese protesters is something that really further radicalized me. You know, I always tell this story, but the first protest I ever participated in was when I was like around 4 to 5 years old. I know my brother didn't exist yet, so that's why I know I was like a toddler during that time. Like, I was very young because my brother wasn't born yet. And my father took me to a peaceful protest where we were from to protest against abuse of immigrant workers. And I remember holding my dad's hand with my tiny little hands and marching around, yelling el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. And just chanting that el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Okay? And even though I was brainwashed eventually when I grew up, that stayed in my heart. Okay, part of me knew that American imperialism was controlling everything and that we had to stop it. I just didn't realize it until I started learning history, until I connected that to my family's pain and connected it to other countries' pain. I saw a photo of Vietnam, of what America did to the Vietnamese people, and that radicalized me even more and encouraged me to learn real history, not propaganda from the fucking US. And then I see what's going on in Palestine, I decide to learn about it, and then, you know, I decided to talk about it when I began streaming here on Twitch. And then I went out there and I protested in Japan against genocide. And in one of those protests I participated in, and I knew no one, of course, but imagine me just standing there, you know, hearing Japanese people speak out against genocide in support of Palestine. And then all of a sudden, everyone starts playing instruments, starts singing, and then they start singing, chanting El Pueblo Unido jamás será vencido. I just started crying right there because I remembered my first protest as a fucking 5-year-old. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I ended up back here in a different country, speaking out for what's right. And that chant still followed me into my adulthood. I thought I totally forgot about it until I was in Japan protesting. So if you guys really want to make a change, organizing, you know, joining a club, joining a group of some sort, you know, learning more about these things, building a community. Like for me, I'm trying to build a community in my own way, of course, by speaking and learning about these things with you guys together. Because, you know, like I said, I didn't know this. All that we just watched just now, I didn't know. I'm learning with you guys, and I want you guys to formulate your own opinions and encourage you guys to speak out and to possibly also organize, because that really does help, rather than just be like a fucking nerd emoji. Actually, Karl Marx said that blah 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 blah, socialism, communism, blah blah blah. I think that yeah, it's more important to connect with people who understand your pain or who understand other people's pain and to speak out. That is important. Make a community. So what has the embargo done to Cuba? So this is from Al Jazeera, and this was specifically from 4 years ago. Okay. Cuba suffering from the abuse of America is not something that is new. And America will try to brainwash you and tell you that it's all Fidel Castro's fault. America has been imposing embargoes on Cuba. Okay. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do business with Cuba. Cuba can't do that. How are they supposed to succeed as a country when America is isolating them from the world? This was from 4 years ago. And it says Cuba marks 60 years under the world's longest embargo. 60 years, chat.
The disintegrating buildings of Cuba's once magnificent capital, a reflection of a crumbling economy in what was once regarded as the jewel of the Caribbean. It's as though the country had been frozen in time, back to 1962, to when the United States declared an economic, financial, and diplomatic embargo against its tiny communist neighbor. It was at the height of the Cold War. 75-year-old Rolando Ignacio Ruiz was 15 then, just 3 years after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. 60 years later, he laments that the embargo is still in place.
They should have removed it long time ago. If after all this time the United States hasn't achieved anything, it certainly won't now. It only hurts our people, but the government remains in place.
That's true. What's the point of still having the embargoes? What has America succeeded in this? Nada, nothing, chat. What do they gain from forcing Cuba to be isolated like this? Fidel Castro's he's not a threat no more. He's dead. Okay, the revolution leaders with power are dead. What's the point of this?
He's not wrong. The world's longest economic embargo has certainly hurt ordinary Cubans, limiting access to medicine, cheap U.S. imports, technology, and credit through a U.S. dollar-dominated financial system. Washington's purpose has always been to modify or force out Cuba's one-party communist system, but clearly it's failed miserably.
On the contrary, in Cuba's case, the embargo has become a fundamental component for the survival of the Cuban state and its current government. The tougher the sanctions, the easier it is to accuse the United States of violating sovereignty, destabilizing the country, and organizing rebellion.
That is exactly what happened when economic hardships and restrictions on freedom of expression exploded into unprecedented mass demonstrations last year. Referring to 60 years of economic embargo, President Miguel Díaz-Canel alluded to sanctions against Cuba's allies, Venezuela and Nicaragua.
This criminal and immoral policy imposed systematically against us is a massive violation of the human rights of the Cuban people, and it is the same one that is now threatening and attacking other nations of our region with unilateral coercive measures.
Harsh sanctions against Venezuela and milder ones against Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega have in fact encouraged alliances with China, Russia, and Iran, making them less dependent on the U.S.
I don't know of any case in Latin America where sanctions have produced the desired results, even partially.
The same might be said for unilateral sanctions in other parts of the world. But while they may not be effective, they remain Washington's preferred means of persuasion. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
It's just like they just want complete control. They want complete control, and if you don't give us complete control, we're gonna isolate you and make you and your people suffer. This was from 4 years ago. And now that the US bombed Venezuela, kidnapped their president, and now the US has control of the oil, Cuba's isolated. Mexico's debating if they should send oil. And they should. But if they defy being controlled by America, well, they're probably Mexico might become the next Cuba in forms of how America is punishing Cuba right now. America will try to do the same to Mexico. So I feel like more countries right now need to unite. Where's the other Latin American countries? What are they doing? Why are they siding with the US? So I want to end it with Fidel Castro, like a very short clip of Fidel Castro explaining why he decided to help other countries escape colonialism, specifically American colonialism.
Algunos imperialistas se preguntan por qué ayudamos a los angoleños.
Imperialists ask, why do we help the Angolians?
¿Qué intereses tenemos nosotros allí?
What interests do we have there?
Ellos están acostumbrados a pensar que cuando un país hace algo es porque está.
They're so accustomed to thinking that if a country does something,
buscando petróleo o cobre o
they're looking for oil, copper, diamonds, or other natural resources.
O algún recurso natural. No.
No.
Nosotros no buscamos ningún interés material y los imperialistas es lógico que no lo entiendan.
We don't look for any materialistic benefits in Angola. And that is something, and it's logical that the imperialists cannot understand that. He legit, Cuba legit, didn't have anything to gain from helping other countries escape imperialism other than just having solidarity. Okay.
Algunos imperialistas se preguntan por qué ayudamos a los angoleños, que qué intereses tenemos nosotros allí. Ellos están acostumbrados a pensar que cuando un país hace algo es porque está buscando petróleo o cobre o diamante o algún recurso natural. No. Nosotros no buscamos ningún interés material y los imperialistas es lógico que no lo entiendan.
Mm-hmm. And I want to end it with that. Speak out for Cuba. Pay attention to what's happening in Cuba, Palestine, Congo, Sudan, any other country affected by American imperialism. But right now, Cuba needs our help. They're running out of oil, and they're gonna run out of everything within the start of March. So speak up, learn, and what's it called? Organize. Okay. In a sense, right now, if you're watching this and hearing me yap, that's a form of organizing. Okay, because a lot of people feel isolated from what's happening in the world and don't think, anything is important because of it. But no, like, organize here, and if you want to take a step further, organize outside of Twitch, obviously. Organize in your vicinity, in your club. Like, I know there's schools with clubs. I know there's organizations out there, community services. It's possible. What's with the pathetic right-wingers in your comments, girly? Yes, the only people that support my YouTube VODs are unfortunately right-wingers. No one, I rarely see someone who is progressive supporting what I do in my YouTube comments section. Ironically, the only ones supporting me are right-wingers. They say a lot of illogical things that are really easy to debunk. I think recently my Minecraft educational stream that briefly talked about John Lewis, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Malala, Rosa Parks, among other social activists, civil rights activists, pissed someone off and called me a failure. And so what I did is I pinned their comment. It's cause like, okay, like I know that I don't have big numbers. I know that what I do isn't fucking popular. I'm not doing this for popularity. This is what people like that don't understand. Also for the fucking the fake lefties, that fucking bread VTuber chick, whatever the fuck her name is, you know, I don't say this shit for likes like some people do, because there's right-wing grifters and there's left-wing grifters. I don't do this shit for the grift, okay? This is not even, I'm not getting money for this. I'm not getting clout for this. You know, on a good day, I get 5 viewers, okay? You think I get clout from this? No. But right-wingers and fake leftists don't see that. They just do things for numbers and likes, and I do this because I care for people and I want the world to fucking change. This is why I'm talking about it. And because I think VTubers, yeah, your anime lowly girls contribute to racism, okay? They contribute to colonialism and the normalization of hate. And I want to be the one VTuber who actually does political commentary, you know, not playing fucking Valorant while saying, oh yeah, trans rights. No, more than that, okay? More than that. Looking at history, looking at articles, looking at news sources, looking at documentaries. Thank you for
Zaya36 gifted 5 subscriptions to the community.
Thank you for gifting 5 subs to the community again, Zaya36. You didn't have to. I wasn't saying that to get money, by the way. I'm not doing this for money. I don't see VTubing as a form of, what's it called, of income. I have a job. I have 2 jobs, okay? I gain no profit from doing any of this. So that's why when a right-winger in my YouTube comments mocks me for being a failure for talking about social issues, I'm gonna pin that shit so everyone can see, because I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing this for fucking likes or money or popularity. Same goes for the fake, again, like I said, for the fake lefties on Twitter, VTubers pretending like they care about ICE and shit just to block me, a Mexican American, actually speaking on politics.
Gracias, Gozaimas.
Yeah, I don't care.
Thank you for donating to the
thank you for
Free Palestine.
Thank you for donating to the PCRF.
Zaya36 just donated $15 to the PCRF.
Okay. There we go. You know, are the fucking lefties donating to Palestinian charities? Hello? I'm gonna change the charity pretty soon, by the way, to support families affected by ICE. That's going to be probably next week, once I kind of I want to research on the charity organization I want to fund for first. But thank you, Zaya36, for the 5 gifted subs and also for the $15 donation to the PCRF, the Palestine Children Relief Fund. Whew, that was crazy. Thank you a lot. But yeah, do your best out there, y'all. Don't do it for the likes. Don't do it for the money. Do it because you want the world to be a better place, okay? And also congratulations to Wizard Bread Book, Upstart DJ, B Vision 13, Mr. Orange Wedges, and Snailer Moon for the gifted sub. I'd love to donate to that too. Fuck eyes. True. Thank you for your support, Saya36. Okay, that was the end of TamaTalks. That was a pretty long episode. 3 hours long, huh? I'll see you next week for TamaTalks at 10 p.m. JST. Yeah. I appreciate y'all, whoever lurked, watched, is watching the VOD or commenting. Please, I mean, I'd appreciate if people commented nice things in my YouTube VODs, but I understand if that's too much trouble. But yeah, thank you for the support, y'all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be a chill stream. I'm going to make emotes with you guys. There is a new program on Steam called Emote Lab, where creators can create their own emotes, customizable emotes for their community. Yeah, very affordable option out there, and I think it would be fun to create that as a chill stream. So thank you for the stream. Thank you for the stream. You met True. Thank you for the stream. My bad. Thank you for joining. My bad. Thank you for the stream, Michu. Nice commenter squad time to move. Go, 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 go. Yeah. An ad break is starting soon. Okay, before the ad break starts, yeah, but I'm gonna leave now, okay, y'all? Have a good night, okay? I'll see you guys tomorrow for the chill emote making stream. Good night. Oyasumi. Oyasumi, more like Oyasu D.
してるから今